Hello to all of the many lovely ladies in our audience and the handful of brave men, I guess, that are with them, right? Thank you all for being here. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. My name is Deb Hackathorn. I'm a member of the CMC Board of Trustees, and my day job is as a government affairs representative with Civic Point, which is a division of Frost Brown Todd law firm. Now on to today's forum, Women's Guide to Running for Office and Changing the World. It is brought to us today with support from Bricker and Eckler and in partnership with Gramercy Books, the Matriots, and the League of Women Voters of Metropolitan Columbus. Each of those groups is represented today by many friends and associates. Please join me in thanking them for their support. And now, please welcome Anne Marie Shuster, partner at Bricker and Eckler, to introduce our forum and speakers.
Thank you, Deb. Bricker and Eckler is proud to support the Columbus Metropolitan Club as it convenes these weekly public conversations on important community topics like the one that brought us all here today. One of my heroes, Madeleine Albright, the former United States Secretary of State and currently the National Democratic Institute's chair, says this, that women in power can be counted on to raise issues that others overlook, to support ideas that others oppose, and to seek an end to abuses that others accept. With that as a backdrop, let's talk about what's going on today. While 50.8% of the U.S. population is female, only 23.7% of people in Congress are female. At the state level here in Ohio, we're doing a little bit better. Not that great, though. We have 28.9% of our legislators are female, and 29.3% of elected executive officials are female. That's not good enough, and we can do better. And we all know that, right? And I was going to say, our panel might have something to say about that today, correct? Exactly. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists today. And they're not in the order that I'm introducing them, so please raise your hand. We have with us Kate Black, who is the author of Represent, the Women's Guide to Running for Office and Changing the World. This one probably needs no introduction. It's Betty Montgomery, the former Attorney General of the state of Ohio and currently of Counsel Attorney at the law firm Mac Murray Shuster. Also with us today is Columbus City Councilwoman Priscilla Tyson. And our host today is journalist at Ohio Public Radio and Television Statehouse News Bureau, Jo Ingles. Floor is yours, Jo.
Thank you so much for letting me be here today, and welcome. I know this is going to be a robust discussion, so I just want to get right into the questions here. So I'm going to ask a tough one to start out with. I mean, women got the right to vote, like a century ago. So what's going on? Why don't we have more women in office?
Well, I'll take the lead. First and foremost, let me just say thank you to everyone who's coming. It is tremendous to see so many women and so many men in the audience. When we're asked this question, why don't we have more women in office? I think, there are some real structural barriers and there's some internal barriers too. Some of those structural barriers include campaign finance reform. It costs a lot of money to run for office in this country, but women haven't really been earning as much as men for so long. We don't earn an equal wage for our work. We're a majority of minimum wage earners. We're also doing a lot of the caretaking and caregiving in this country. Yet, when we are encouraged to lead, turns out we win just as much as men do. And so the question of why aren't there more, I think, there are some structural things, but internal things like qualifications and not feeling qualified, which we talk about in the book, and I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit. But, I think there are some real reasons why women don't run, but our hope with writing Represent was that we could encourage women to see those barriers, but then jump right over them.
And frankly, the difference between the genders are oftentimes we see, as I've spent many years along with Joanne Davidson and a number of the folks in this room recruiting women, is that when you go, you have to recruit a woman. Generally speaking, a man will step into the fray, and a woman generally needs to be asked. And again, with all due respect to the men in the audience, if you get a job description, the job description is X. A woman looks at her resume and says, well, mine isn't X, so I can't run. But in fact, a man will say, it's X, mine is Y, but we can make it XY, right? And so what happens is women don't realize, look, it's what you're really being hired for is for the talents that you have. And the job will become your own, but you have to step into the fray. I was asked to run many times before in fact, I don't think I ever stepped into the fray myself until after I was Attorney General. The Speaker of the House, sitting right over there, Mrs. Davidson, wouldn't let me out of a room until I said, yes, I would run for Attorney General.
Well, and to this point, there's this great / very sad statistic that we include in the book, which is that, there's a poll taken of men and women who were potential candidates. And they asked them, do you feel qualified to run for office? And a majority of women said no. But of the men who self-selected that they too were not qualified to run for office, a majority of that group said that they would still run for office. So that's the pool. If men, we say this in the book, men are not waiting. They are jumping right in, whereas women have to be recruited. We have to be asked multiple times. And not all that takes intentionality. It takes time. It also means us also raising our hands too. And then we wanted to jump in.
You actually were telling me beforehand, what, 2 times?
Yes, so I was just sharing that I was certainly asked, and I was asked 2 times before I actually ran. Before I ran, it took me 10 years to decide to do this work. And, but I think the reason being is a lot of things. One, confidence. I don't lack confidence, so that's number one, but I would just share confidence is one. But but seriously, I think the reason is that we see that as women, we play a lot of roles. You play a lot of roles. And when you decide that you're going to run, you have to think about, we're wives, we're caregivers, we're working places, and thinking about, can you juggle all of that? And so, I think that's first and foremost. And so for me, yes, I had to be asked twice. And when I realized that, then there must be something others are seeing in me that I have something to offer, then I jumped into the fray. And then I realized that all along all the other roles I had played have prepared me to do the work. And then you really just have to be passionate about this work and not be afraid to step out, not be afraid to raise money, not be afraid to have something that you care deeply about and you want to make sure you're stating that to your community. But I also have to have people who believe in you around you. I see someone who has supported me since 2007. I see Antoinette Wilson here because I was scared to death because I really didn't have a lot of political experience, and someone who was there to be able to support me in this role. And now I'm almost 13 years in this role. I'm very appreciative that I had people that were there to support me.
Well, I think going back to what both of you have said, there's another addition here. I think women tend to be a lot more risk averse than men, and it takes a leap, and that adversity is underwritten by the fact of the many roles that they have, and even though the world has changed and there's a lot more support for women who are going to be working outside the home, it still emotionally lays with the woman's heart and the sense of responsibility, the home and hearth.
Absolutely. It's what we wanted to do in the book, actually, is make this book as accessible and as fun and, dare I say, funny a process as possible. Running for office is not easy, to be sure, and we wanted to address the the money it takes, the time it takes, the care and feeding that you need personally, the self-care, but also the care that you're giving. And so we actually had to pare it down, but it was 2 sections in the book, and we kind of talk about it. Think about your career. How does this fit into it? Think about your job. Do you need to leave your job to campaign? Is it full-time or part-time? Do you have the time to do it? You know, we invite the reader to do a time log, which Diane Raphael, the actress and activist who was my co-author, we both did a time log. Now hers is much more narrative, and I use an Excel spreadsheet. No shame in that. But you know, once you kind of identify where your hours are being spent, turns out a lot of reality TV, but you can address what needs to be given up, maybe to run for office, but what needs to be kept sacred. And then you think about the care, both the care that, you know, we're giving, and this generation is certainly doing that between caring for aging parents and raising the next generation, but also that self-care so that you can run in your full, healthy, authentic self.
So what are the barriers that kind of keep women from running for office? And in your personal experience, what kind of barriers have you faced at being in office, running for office, staying in office?
I can remember the last time, well, first of all, money, obviously, and confidence. And I can remember going door to door exhaustively when I was running for county prosecutor, and there weren't women prosecutors in the state. There wasn't any women prosecutor in the state. I remember the last door I knocked on, and this is in Bowling Green. It's a university town. I knock on the door and I say, my name's Betty Montgomery and I'm running for county prosecutor. Wood County deserves a full-time prosecutor, blah, 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 blah. And he looked at me and he said, you don't think that Wood County is going to elect a woman to be a county prosecutor? And I thought to myself, I don't think I have to knock on any more doors. So I just went home. So it's money, it's confidence, it's the confidence of those around you. And the cultural biases. When I was a city prosecutor, I still remember my judge calling me. He thought it was cute. It was a prosecutrix, and so he shortened it to Trixie.
Not great.
Now, do I look like a Trixie? No, not so much. So.
How did you respond to that? I'm just curious.
Well, I had a pretty open relationship with him, and I said, well, Your Honor, how is it that you say I shouldn't get my feathers ruffled, i.e. I'm a woman, so I have feathers, but you have hackles? Now, just tell me what the difference is. And we went back and forth a little bit, but we had I think I was a little more pugnacious than I needed to be.
I think you have to think about, you should ask about barriers. And so if you have a family, because once you decide that you are going to run for office, it really means your whole family's involved in it.
Amen.
It isn't just you. And you have to make sure that your family is in it with you, that there's certain behaviors that we as elected officials must make sure that we are abiding by. And so not only is it the elected official, it's that official's family. You don't want anything coming up from in your family that could be a concern. It's also thinking about who's your staff, because there's a certain expectation that when I'm walking throughout this city, I am an elected official, and how am I acting? I represent each and every one of you. Doesn't matter what party we're of, it's just I represent you. And you have a certain expectation of an elected official and her family. And so you have to make sure, that can be sometimes a barrier depending on your family situation. I mean, and you're also a very public official then. So you have to share, what's your debt, you have to share some, debt, who's, just everything. And you belong to the community. When you go to the grocery store, you can't just go to the grocery store, let me just throw something on and run to the grocery store. Because one, you're gonna see people there, they're gonna come up and say, either you're doing a good job, maybe there's a problem in the city they wanna talk about. So you have to be prepared, and you really do, if you wanna run for office, you have to like people. Now, because if you are a policy person and you want to do policy, that's very different than being out here. Because when I see people, I say, hi, the store, I know you, yes, hi, I'm Priscilla Tyson, I work for you every single day. So it's a different mindset that you have to have if you're going to do this work. It isn't just about you. And the last thing I'll mention is that you can't be afraid to lose. You can't be afraid to lose. If you're someone who believes in winning, then you may try to win at any cost. You have to be able, I had to visually see myself, if I lose this race, my name could be on the front page of the paper, you lost the race, can you pick yourself up and keep moving? And so those are just some of the things that we can talk about all the time. And if you're going to do it, think about those too.
Well, and I think I love these answers because they are so clearly, it's what's in the book, really. And I think in the book, we also show to this feeling of being qualified and the confidence, that your experience is your expertise.
That's right.
Your narrative up until today is what is going to propel you into office. It might not all fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper in your resume, but it is what makes you you. And that narrative is what's ultimately going to connect with voters. To the point about women not feeling, I don't have the right job, or it's not the right time, or my kids aren't grown, or my father's still sick, or I still have student debt. There is no right time. Right. And to that end, in the book, we actually looked at all of the jobs that the people in the 115th Congress, or the last Congress, what jobs did they do before being elected into office? And surely, it's a lot of lawyers, it's people who have a lot of degrees, but it's also car salesmen, it's radio hosts, it's nurses and doctors and teachers and social workers and union members and farmers. It's all kinds of people. And my co-author and I came to this book with the realization that, our government would do better if it looked more like the people it served. And right now it's not that, and we want to try with this book to encourage as many women to step up and lead in any way that they can.
Well, that goes into the next question I have. I noticed that a few years ago when I was out talking to women who were running for office, they were telling me, the Democratic women were talking about issues like equal pay for equal work and abortion, birth control, things like that. Then you had the Republican women who were out there talking about the economy and small businesses and tax reform. And then when you go and you talk to the voters who are standing in line to vote, and you ask the female voters what they think, what they're looking for, what's the number one thing you want to see in a woman candidate, or in a candidate period, it really sometimes doesn't go with what is being marketed to them. So you have all these women from all over the place with all these different ideas, all these different needs, and maybe even some of the male candidates speak better to some of their particular needs. So does it really matter if there are more women candidates, or does it just need to be more candidates who speak to issues that are important to women?
Well, I'll go first, and then we my thought is, I think what you're raising is a perfect example of the fact that women are not all the same. We don't lead the same, we don't legislate the same, we don't vote the same. And so what we don't want to do is fall into some sort of essentialist trap that women are a monolith, and that we all kind of put our every foot forward the same way when it comes to the way we live or the way we vote. But I do think it matters to have women in office. I think it matters to have women candidates. When we're not at the table, when decisions are being made about ourselves, our children, the planet we occupy, our jobs, that matters. And surely the research proves this. When there are women in office, we sponsor more legislation, we work across the aisle, we work more collaboratively, and we get things done. It's hard to forget, living in Washington, it was women who actually got us out of the budget shutdown, Republican and Democratic women coming together. We've gotten out of some pretty big jams because of women kind of finding some common solutions. And so I think it does really matter to have women candidates speaking to issues, not just, quote unquote, women's issues, but issues that affect all women. I think Kamala Harris actually has a line on the campaign trail. A reporter asked her, I want to talk to you about women's issues. And she goes, oh, great, let's talk about the economy. Because it is that, right? We are doing the unpaid labor and paid labor in this country. And I think if we're going to talk about taxes and the economy, then we're talking about women too.
Councilmember Tyson, what do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that you need to have women at the table. We absolutely bring different diverse ideas to solve whether it be our city, our county, our state, our federal problems. And we have solutions because we think outside the box. We're used to juggling many things at the same time, so we can talk, chew gum, do many things at the same time. And so I think that, and it's also important to have diversity within women. As you just spoke, there's different issues, and each of us need to work on all issues. But some of us are going to be tied into specific issues and concerns. One person can't do it all, so we have to all work together to make things happen. But it is really important. So when you think about the diversity of our city, of our state, of our country, we're very diverse, and we need to have representation from everyone there. We need to be making sure that we are also making sure that young people are getting engaged in politics. I see Dr. Wendy Smoot from Ohio State, and she's written a lot about getting young women involved into politics. And so we will bring a different viewpoint to solve issues when you have us at the table. It is imperative that we're there.
I think when I was in the legislature, I remember when I first went down to the legislature from being a prosecutor, that the thing that struck me was that it seemed to me that men tended to lead, and again, this is a generalization, at a square table with a gavel, and women tended to lead at a round table. We worked across the aisle, we worked across issues. And your question about, well, sometimes the candidates don't seem to reflect what the electorate wants. Well, that's what we're supposed to bring to the table. What I think the electorate wants is authenticity. They want somebody who's going to listen, and somebody who is going to sit down. And I think oftentimes what women will do is essentially bring to a table is, well, we don't make it command control. Here's the problem, here's the solution. Here's the problem, and we should check with A, B, C, and D, and sit down and make sure we have a full understanding of the question and the implications of our proposed solution. And that just requires a skill sets. And so one of the things you don't want to be, I don't think, and one of the admonitions we always give in the Leadership Institute, it should be an institution sometimes, but, the Joanne Davidson Ohio Leadership Institute, is that you don't want to be pigeonholed. Right. You may be a woman, but the issues that face you are the same issues that face men, but you may have experienced those issues in a different way, and you may have a different perspective, and your voice should be heard in that way. So I would always take umbrage with anyone who would want to say, well, Republicans talk about this, not that you were saying that, but Republicans talk about this or Democrats talk about this. No, I think they talk about where our interest is, where our experience is. You're going to talk about economic development till the cows come home, right? Because we're going to bring to the table our experience.
You have to really push to get on to be able to have those discussions. I think that, and I know Councilman Brown is here, that prior to, I think, I was the first woman to chair finance at the city of Columbus. Now Councilman Brown chairs that committee. So, because people have this view that, I guess, that women don't understand finance or don't understand the finance of the city, but you have to really push to say, yes, I do. First of all, I do understand it, and I want to lead that committee so I can help move our city forward and make sure we're putting dollars in the place to help the residents of our community, a more diverse group of people who need those services. So we have to also be pushing to say we can do that and figure out and get support from other members to be able to lead those committees and things of that sort.
I know in the book, Kate's book, Councilmember Brown was in the book, and she was quoted as saying that her husband was her ally, is the person who pushed her, who stood there and wanted her to get in the game. And Attorney General Montgomery, you said that you got the same from former Speaker Davidson, who wanted you to do that. How important is an ally to the success of someone who's running for office and then staying in office?
All you have to do is be walking door to door on a nice sunny May day on Saturday morning when you see the kids out playing and the man at the house is washing the car, and you see families and you're by yourself knocking on doors, and you say to yourself, what am I doing? And if you didn't have allies, and that's part of the reason we did the Leadership Institute, Joanne did the Leadership Institute. Create a group of allies that can look at each other and say, you need help on Saturday morning, we're going to come halfway across the state and knock on doors with you. So allies are critical, male and female.
You agree?
Yeah, absolutely, you need allies. This is hard work. I don't want anyone to think, people see us and think, oh, being elected official, that's a lot of fun, they get to, maybe they get to, get in line before somebody else or something like that. Let me be very clear, it is hard work. It's hard work. And you have to have people around you who are motivating you. There are days you come home and you're like, oh my goodness, you just don't understand the day that I've had. Or when you're out campaigning, you need to have people that are there that are supporting with you when you're out debating. It isn't easy work. But the reason we do it is because we know that we're making a difference in our community, and we want our voices to be heard. And so I have my family, I have my husbands, my sons, my friends. I have one of my friends is here, Lorraine Brox. I'm coming here to support you today. I mentioned Antoinette. I can pick up the phone at 11 o'clock at night and say, this is what's going on. What's your advice? I mean, you really want to be able to have people that you can have those conversations with.
And they also have to be people who are willing to tell you that you're
That's
wrong.
right. That's right.
Deb Hackathorn, then Shanahan, was my chief policy person and chief of staff, and she was not afraid. First of all, you have to be open to listen.
Yes.
But then you have to have people around you. I've had a few kicks in the pants, believe me. I could point out the names of the people here, but and to have folks say to you, look, you're just get your head in the game, or straighten up, you're wrong here, or you could have handled that better. I've gotten a lot of that advice along the way, and that's very helpful. You're going to kill me, Joanne. My last piece of advice is I'm getting on the stage to get sworn in as Attorney General for and I think a dear friend of mine takes me by the shoulders, and I think she's going to say, great job, you've done a wonderful, I'm so proud of you. And what does she say to me? Because she's a supporter, she looks at me and she says, don't cry.
Don't be emotional. Don't be emotional.
Well, I love these stories because it just proves that you do need a village. It takes a village to run for office. It takes people, your friends and your family. And what we do in the book is invite women to think about how to ask for help in a real way. It's not just like, I'm running for office, could you help me? You need to be specific. You need to say, I need to make sure there's Diet Coke and coffee there on the regular every day. Or I need to make sure there's dinner on the table, or the dry cleaning needs picked up, or my dog needs walked, or my kid needs picked up from school. Like, whatever the thing is, we invite the reader who's thinking about running for office to think about the women and men in their lives and ask for the help that they need. Now, you mentioned we also included City Councilwoman Liz Brown. We surveyed women up and down the ballot from coast to coast for this book because we wanted to include a diverse set of voices. June and I, we come from similar identities. We are two straight white women. We wanted to make sure that any person who picks up this book feels represented and could see themselves either in a story or on the pages itself. And so in addition to Liz, we also had Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, the Mayor of Seattle, Jenny Durkin, Crisanta Duran, who was the first Latina House Speaker of Colorado. And we also had a young woman named Jordan Evans, who, if you don't know her, you should Google her because she's fantastic. She's the only openly transgender Republican elected official in that party, and she's a local library trustee in Massachusetts. And so from their stories and some other women that we profiled, our hope is that, when you're reading this book, that you're inspired by not only, hopefully, the advice that we're giving you, but also the stories of women who have done it.
One thing that I notice, and I think probably everyone in this room has noticed it, is the political tone these days is just increasingly nasty. It's caustic to the point you have to turn off the TV sometimes. So are you finding that maybe female candidates are turned off by that? Or is that the catalyst that makes them want to run and change things?
Yes. To both. I think the discourse is acidic, and we can go to lots of sources for that, both the social media, the anonymity of social media, the dispersal of news sources, all of those things, as well as personalities behind the podium. And but I think it both turns people off, but it is now becoming a catalyst. It's a fulcrum that we can use to get more women.
Okay, well, I need to remind everyone that we'll move to audience questions in just a few minutes. So please step over to the microphone right over there. When you have your question, don't be shy, and ask your question, and we'll take a line there. So, but let me get to one final question here that I want to ask is, looking ahead, how do we know when women have made it in politics, when they have their place at the table, so to speak?
I mean, God, how do we know? I mean, I think we all hope for parity. I would love to see every table where decisions are being made, whether it's in a C-suite, in a committee room, in a city council chamber, where there's an even number of women and men. And in the book, we encourage every woman from any party, whether it's Democrat or Republican, Green Party, Independent, or no party, to pick up this book, because it is going to take all parties doing their part so that we have parity. And I just want to take one point of privilege, just a quick shout out to my parents. Without them, this wouldn't happen. So.
Okay.
I agree with her comments, and I think that I'm really pleased that she's written this book. I certainly wish that 13 years ago there was a book that I could have read that it would have made me give more thought to it even before I ran. And this is an excellent book for individuals who are thinking about running. It is really a roadmap as to how you could get into running for office and making a difference in your community. So I certainly want to commend her for writing the book. And I agree that I think with a book like this, individuals will decide that they would want to run. We absolutely need more women running for office. Just if you look at your table and see the numbers, we are, generally one third of us are in elected officials, and so we need to have more people to be able to represent women and the issues in our community.
I think we'll know we've made it when we're not talking about it anymore.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, it's the CMC's tradition to take audience questions, so please state your name and ask your questions and avoid the editorial comments and all that. And remember to end your questions with an actual question. So let's get started with the first question, please.
Thank you. My name is Renee Delane of Women Who Dare, and I have a question, and each of you can answer differently because, Priscilla, I'd like your answer. Yours will be a little bit different. But what can white women do and white men to help support women and men of color to head in and throw their hat in the ring for office or for any position?
You should go. I can go.
Go ahead, and I'll go.
Okay.
I'll be happy.
So in the book, we acknowledge, I think, on almost like page 2, that white women certainly have to do our part and understand that we have upheld some of the structures that have kept, especially women of color, out of office and out of leadership. And so to that end, we talk a lot about privilege in the book, and we actually got the rights to publish a chapter called The Invisible Knapsack by Peggy McIntosh. And if you haven't read it, it's fantastic, but it's a great primer on the privileges that we all kind of carry. And so we say, if this is the first time you've been hearing the word privilege, go to the back first and then work your way forward. But then we also provide in the book, because we've all heard things about women and women of color candidates in particular that's sexist and racist, we invite the reader to think about how they can start interrupting that dialogue. And whether it's on Twitter or over the Thanksgiving table or with friends or coworkers, we've all heard, I just don't like her, she doesn't smile enough, she's playing a race card, she doesn't look the part, she doesn't represent my full community. And so to that end, we provide some responses, because silence in those moments can't be seen as acceptance. And the beauty of interruption, while sometimes difficult, is that it can, one, open up a dialogue with that person, but two, it can start to deconstruct some of the stereotypes that affect women and women of color candidates specifically, and hopefully help more of them get votes and run for office. But
First of all, I want to say thank you for that question. Certainly, that we need more women of color who are able to run for office. And one of the ways that I think that we talk about just having access. So I would say and then on the matriarch to here, and there's lots of people here, is to begin to, first of all, reach out to the party, that whatever party that you are, whatever your political party happens to be, and hopefully they've identified some individuals of color that are willing to run for office, and get to know that individual. And then be able to, as we know, as we just talked about, if women are only making 60 cents on the dollar, they don't really have the means to be able to fund their own campaigns, and they don't normally have access to people who have money. So that would mean that once you get to know that person, provide that person an opportunity to get to know some of your friends and colleagues, et cetera, so that they can help, so they get to know the person and be willing to support them. It is just really important that that we have more people of color running for office, and I'm glad that's what Dr. Smooth is doing, and understanding some of the issues and concerns that people of color face. So I truly appreciate the question, and I absolutely believe that since it's on the top of mind for you and others, that we will reach out and make sure that more people of color, thinking about the diversity of this community, have an opportunity to run. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the next question.
Hello, my name is Tony Bell, and my question for each of you, because you all deal with campaigns, whether you've been in office or not, is how do you keep yourself from having what we call mission fatigue? Yeah, that's
Mission
it.
fatigue. How do you keep from having mission fatigue?
Yeah, do you
So
want a
one
quick
of-
definition, or are you good?
So
We all know it?
sometimes you just have to change your job. I mean, it's an odd thing, but there was a time when I was doing so much sexual abuse cases when I was a juvenile prosecutor and then a county prosecutor that, you for the self-help, for being healthy, you had to take a look at yourself and say, is it time for me to step back and redirect my focus in another way just to get healthy so that I can go back to the mission? Either that, or you spend a lot of time talking to colleagues and saying, I'm really troubled by this, and how do I get through it? But sometimes it's a matter of saying, if you have mission fatigue, maybe it's time for you to examine your mission. Is this what I want to do? Have I done what I need to do as a mission, and do I need to redirect myself?
Tony, as a local official, which I absolutely love, because local government, you're the closest to the people and you realize the issues that are going on in your community. And so for me, there's so many issues in our community that need to be dealt with. For me, I want to improve the individual's quality of life. And so to be able to do that, there's so many areas you can work on, so I never get mission fatigue. I just don't get it. So right now, I will just share that because I'm looking at, we talk about poverty in our community. I mean, think about poverty. The one group of individuals that happen to be who's getting evicted, who's in the homeless shelter. If you start thinking about the amount of money a woman of color makes, 63 cents on the dollar, but less than that for people who are in poverty. So for me, it's about prevention. So I've created a commission on black girls because black women are the ones in the shelter. Black women are the ones being evicted. Black women are the ones having babies are dying before their first birthday. So for me, that's just what I'm doing now. I had a food plan. I've done lots of other work over 13 years, but for me right now, if you're going to try to solve a problem, you got to figure out where the problem really is and be able to speak truth to it. So I don't get tired because there's a lot of things going on in this community that a third of our people are dealing with. The other thing is that I don't get mission fatigue because I also know how to take a break. So we just had a month break in council. I didn't walk in the building the entire month. I had to take time for me and my family and to get away so that I can be re-energized to come back. So I look at it personally and professionally, and what do I need to do to keep moving forward.
So the last thing I'll say is that, in the book we share that women usually run off for office to solve a problem in their communities. Whether it's a small thing, maybe a stop sign at the end of the street so your street is safer for your kids, or a large issue like taxes or immigration reform, or equal pay. Whatever the thing is, identify it, understand what you're tweeting about a lot, or understand what you're sharing about, and that's what's going to fuel your campaign and eventually probably develop into a platform. In the book, we try to do a little bit of matchmaking, which is one of my co-authors' favorite things, and we give a little bit of a civics lesson because there are over 500,000 offices you can run for, and so what we do is match that problem that you want to solve with the office that might actually be a solution. So I invite you to check it out because it's, I think, a helpful way to understand how you can actually fuel that passion into a career.
That's right. Okay. Our next question.
Hi, I'm Carol McGuire, and I'd like to thank all of you for a really terrific discussion today. I've served on a lot of nonprofit boards, and when we bring new members on, I often suggest to them that they serve on the Finance Committee or on the Governance Nominating Committee because that's typically where they can have the most impact and learn the most. Once women get elected, where do you suggest they focus initially in order to have the most impact and gain the most knowledge?
So there are a couple anecdotes, that I would share with you. I think it's about what the passion is that they have. It's also about what reflects their communities. I think that in 2018 we saw new women be elected and they started serving, whether they came from rural areas, they started serving on agriculture committees, whether they, have a great deal of expertise in finance, they served on banking. I think it matches a little bit with their strengths. The other thing I would say is there are stories about women coming into office and filling seats on committees in non-traditional places. So Kirsten Gillibrand, for instance, when she first ran for the House, she went on the Armed Services Committee, and she talked about how for the first time there was a conversation about body armor and how that body armor fits women differently. And that conversation never been happening before. And she also talked about how, the impact of veteran services, not only on the veterans themselves, but on their family members, their spouses and partners. That conversation had never happened before in terms of the costs of going to war. And so I think it's about both where your community needs to be heard, but also where you need to make sure that your voice is included.
That's right. I agree.
I agree.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Next question, please.
My name is Frank Reed. My mother was a great woman when she was alive, and I'm happy to be among so many great women today. I've sat next to a woman who was on Grandview City Council. I see my friend Dorothy Teeter. I see people from Union County Commissioners. You are each wonderful role models. For me, I started practicing law 28 years ago. My first boss was Assistant General Manager at CODA, Glenna Watson. Many people know Glenna. And my second boss was Judy Brockman, a member of Voinovich's cabinet. And my third boss was probably the person that gave me the most opportunity, and that's Betty Montgomery. I was the section chief of 3 different, so thank you, Betty, for all the things you've done. My question is, what do you think each of you can do to get more men to advocate our mission and get more women in public office?
Well, I would say buy this book.
And give it to someone.
Yeah, honestly, give it to the women in your life who you think should run. We framed this book around a checklist of it's 21 steps to run for office, and that last step is asking other women in your life who they should run. And I also think men should read this book because it shows you the depth and breadth of all the things that women have to consider when running for office. So I would say buy this book and share it.
Any more?
I would say you should get a mother like Frank's mother that raises their boys well. But honestly speaking, it's just a matter of, I think, all of us that have any influence with our sons, the males in our life, to have them see that women can do the job that men do. And when I was fortunate to be raised with a mother and father that all said, you can be whatever you want to be. And by the way, boys, you're going to be dusting and doing the dishes and setting the table and doing the same things. And girls, you're going to be mowing the lawn and doing the things the boys are doing. We're not going to be treating you differently just because of a gender difference. And I think it's the way you raise, it's the kind of modeling you do. And modeling is so important. And it's like answering the question about getting more women of color. She's a model. And to tell you that you can do the job, and it doesn't matter what your gender is, doesn't matter what your color is.
I would also say identify women. You know women, you see women in their skill sets. You just need to be able to see that they are a leader, that they can engage people. I mean, you recognize leadership. And this is what this is really about, it's leadership. And so identify individuals and talk to them about it. And you've heard today that a lot of women have been waiting to be asked to run. Sometimes they don't see it in themselves. And just try to change your mindset, because right now there's still a mindset. There's a perception that, women can't serve in certain elected positions, even though the book is there and shares all that you can, but there is a perception. We can sit here and, thinking about all these upcoming elections and thinking about, can a woman do this? There are perceptions. So I think that we shouldn't have any negative perception about a woman being able to lead in any office. And so I think that would be very helpful to talk to some of your male friends and colleagues to begin to identify that, and to have conversations that women can lead.
We only have a few minutes left, and I see we have a line back there, so I'm going to ask everyone to kind of get to your question quickly, and if we can kind of answer it quickly so we can get everyone in here. So next question, please.
Hi, I'm Nina LeBlanc. I'm a student from The Ohio State University, and the three of you discussed earlier in the presentation the importance of having allies, of having a community. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the value of sisterhood, or about having female allies specifically in your journeys thus far.
I mean, we say in the book that behind every woman running for office, there's probably just another woman helping her out. And that's true, because we do need help to do this. And I spoke about candidates asking women to help them, but it's on us. And at the end of the chapter, we get this question a lot, like, what can I do if I want to support women running? And so we itemize ways that women can help other women. And sure enough, it's voting for her. That's free and easy. You can donate your time. You can also donate money. And if women, as we've said a lot here, we have a harder time with campaign finance, and especially women of color have a harder time raising money. So donating money to women candidates is a big part. But it's also about just stepping in and not waiting to be invited. I would say to the women in the audience who know women who should run, ask them again, and then consider all the women in your life, not just the women you think could raise the money or that have the, the law degree or whatever. Ask the women who you see at church on Sundays, or who, babysits on the weekends, or is providing you that caretaking for your father or your mother. Those are the women too that we need to make sure are considered. And so in the book, we really encourage all women who read it to not only consider themselves, but consider so many types of women.
Okay, next question.
Question's simple, I'm sorry, is how do we have that talk track with our girlfriends and women to support women and get your checkbooks out?
I think you just have to do it. I mean, you just have to, hopefully they have enough confidence in you that you would be a wonderful elected official, and then they will give to you. And again, you get $5, $10, obviously you have to raise a lot more money, but again, I just think you just have to ask. But women have to support women. We have to support women. Thank you.
Okay, let's get one last question quickly, very quickly.
Hi, I'm Izzy McHale. I'm from The Ohio State University. First of all, thank you all for being here. Second, my question is, in what ways can we take a fully intersectional approach, not just in terms of who we're electing, but in terms of the types of policy that we're pushing for?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, how can we take a fully intersectional approach? So based on gender, sexuality, ability, socioeconomic status. How can we push for different types of representation in elected officials and in policy?
Diversity and elected officials.
I mean, I think it's so important. I think what you've heard from, the three of us during this conversation is how our identities need to be more in our politics. Sometimes you get an adverse reaction to identity politics, but I think if you share your identity, your full identity, whether that is, and that is an intersectional one, I think that sparks a different dialogue. I think it sparks better policy, and ultimately, I think better outcomes for those public servants who are looking to make real change.
Okay, one more question. This is the lightning round, 30 seconds, quickly.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Mason, and I wanted to ask you specifically, what are the unexpected challenges that you've had to overcome running as a candidate? Essentially, you talked about money, you talked about allies, but what are the unexpected challenges? Sorry, I took longer than 30 seconds.
I think that's more than a 30-second answer there. But can you give maybe one or two words quickly?
They were all challenges, so I don't know that when you're certainly new, everything's new, so everything's a challenge. Finding a yard sign coordinator, trying to figure out why your mother who walks door to door with you loses 20 pounds and you don't. Those kind of things. I don't mean to make light, but they're all unexpected at this point.
That's great. Yeah, that's
On that note, so before people head out, we'd love to see, if you wouldn't mind, if you are a former a woman elected official, a current woman elected official, or you're running for office, would you stand, please? Thank you, thank you. Well, we hope your enthusiasm shows that you enjoyed today's forum as much as we did. Please thank our sponsors and our partners for today, Bricker and Eckler, Gramercy Books, The Matriots, and the League of Women Voters of Metropolitan Columbus. We will also thank our speakers, but remind you, as Kate said, that there are books to the left that Gramercy is providing here, so stop at the front table. And finally, let's thank our speakers, Kate Black, Betty Montgomery, Priscilla Tyson, and Jo Ingles. We hope to see you next week or tomorrow night. Thank you.